Wonderful. So I think we can sort of get started. Maybe I'll just give 30 more seconds for those who are possibly registering, and then we will start with the session. Wonderful. Let's get started. I think if people join now, we can just bring them up to speed. So thank you very much to everyone who's joining from in a unit or at home. It's really lovely to have you here today. As I said, it's our 5th session with artist Harold Offeh. So we'll be doing a wax rubbing session, and I'll just go through a few housekeeping rules first, and then we can get straight into the workshop. So I'm Phoebe, I'm a project curator at Hospital Rooms, and I'm here with my colleague Louis. You might hear our voices throughout the webinar, as we'll be sort of fielding the questions from you guys, and I'll explain how to do that in just a sec. This session is being recorded, but the only people that will be audible and visible are Harold and the Hospital Rooms team, so nothing to worry about there. As you know, or as many of you probably know, Hospital Rooms works in mental health units, transforming often quite bleak and clinical spaces with extraordinary artworks, and we are really, it's such a pleasure to have so many of the artists that we work with also doing the digital art school, so that's really amazing. And obviously because of Corona, we're not in workshops at the moment, but it's enabled us to do this really fantastic initiative and broadcast to multiple units and people at home. So it's really fantastic. And thank you all for joining again. We have a lot more workshops coming soon. So every week, every Thursday at 2 p.m. And we have a backlog of all the workshops that have taken place, some really beautifully produced and beautifully shot videos on our YouTube channel. So I really recommend checking those out. So without further ado, I will introduce Harold. Harold's worked with us over the last couple of years in 2 psychiatric intensive care units, and he will be sort of recreating a workshop that he's done at Croydon PQ, and you can see in this image here he's doing a wax relief of the tree bark there. So the workshop at Croydon PQ was one. It was a very sort of collaborative, co-productive workshop, and all of the service users did their own rubbings. Harold took them in and then created this fantastic composition, which then we painted onto the dining room wall. So it was amazing for them to see their work sort of recreated in this way. And I think, and this was then Harold at South London Gallery, where we recreated the work, and he did a performance in the opening night, which was fabulous. So I think without further ado, I will pass over to Harold, and just to say, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, which is just at the bottom of the screen. Louis and I will be fielding those questions for you, and you'll remain completely anonymous throughout that. There's also a feedback form at the end, which will automatically pop up on your internet browser. So it would be super fantastic if you could fill that in, especially if you're from a unit. That's all from me, I think. So pass over to Harold now. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Hello, I'm Harold Offeh. It's really great to be with you for this session. Thanks to Phoebe, Louis, Tim, the whole Hospital Rooms team. I'm really excited, a little bit nervous about doing this. So, but as Phoebe said, I'm going to be doing wax rubbings, and this is a technique that I used with service users from Croydon PQ. So before we get into the main part of what we're going to be doing, I'll just maybe start off by just talking about the materials that you need. So hopefully it gives you a chance, if you haven't got everything together, to get everything together. So you're going to need some paper. So I've just got some plain A4 white paper. You might have larger paper. And then you'll need some crayons. So I've just got a selection here. different colours. You can choose whatever colours you need, but it would be really good if you have a white crayon, because we're going to do one particular exercise with a white crayon. So, I mean, don't worry too much if you haven't got one, but it'd be really good if you have a white crayon. So paper, crayons. A bit later, we're going to be doing some stuff with some paint. And I've got some water here and a brush. And it can be any paint, well, water soluble paint. So like, so if you've got powder paint or block paint or watercolors, or this is, I've got acrylic paint actually that I'm just going to water down. So that I also need that. And then finally, in order to get the rubbings, you'll need just some objects, some surfaces. So I've got here just a few things that I've sort of managed to kind of collect together, but generally what you need is something that is quite flat, but has a hard surface. So this has holes in it. And I'll show you, you basically put the paper on top of whatever surface you've got. If it's got a bit of texture, texture is what you really, texture is your friend. So if you can find surfaces with texture, that's really great. So I've got this heat matte thing. This is just a bit of bark that I found. And again, it's got texture on the surface, falling to bits. So that's another example. What I've actually enjoyed quite doing and experimenting for this is I've got a shoe. So this is just a shoe, and the sole, the tread, I think it's going to be quite good. It's quite an interesting sort of pattern or texture. So if you're really, really stuck, you can maybe like use a shoe or the sole of a shoe. If I still got, what else have I got? I've got a water bottle, something quite rubber with a bit of texture on it. So you can improvise. I mean, part of the sort of challenge of this task is finding interesting surfaces. And when I was working with Croydon PQ, we actually went around the ward and we found interesting surfaces like the radiators. They had a small yard, so we found manhole covers. So if you have the opportunity just to explore within the space that you're in, you might find some interesting surfaces just from, you know, looking at objects or items that you have around. So, okay, so hopefully you've got all the materials that you need. I really love wax rubbings. I mean, it's a very basic technique. Some of you might have done it at school, at primary school. I think sort of kids still do it. But it's actually, as a technique, it has quite a long history. Sort of, you know, 300 years ago, artists and architects would often take rubbings of places that would visit. So if they were touring around somewhere and came to a building or they saw a plaque, they would get out their wax, might be a wax candle and some paper, and they'd take a rubbing and you get an impression of a surface. So let's start. So I'm going to start with my my bit of bark, and I'm going to start with the coloured crayons. So just so you get an idea, so you just need to lay your object on a flat surface, and then put the paper on top, and hold it down, and then just rub across the surface with your wax crayon. And don't worry about the paper. You can press quite hard. Again, sort of up to you. Obviously, the lighter you press, the less of an impression you'll get. The harder you press, you'll get slightly better impression. I've just ripped my paper, but that doesn't matter. So that's the kind of bark. And there are some darker areas and some lighter areas. So I'm going to try maybe something else now in a different colour. Like I said, I've got this piece of metal. It's quite decorative. You can look for things with patterns, are often quite useful. So I'm going to do it in a different area of the paper. This is a bit clearer to see the pattern emerging. And I'm actually going to overlap my rubbings. So, oops. Just by pressing harder, you get more of an impression than pressing lightly. But okay, that's worked out quite well, that one. So got a couple of things there. I might try the shoe. So I've got a sort of tread of this. And I'll just hold this on here. Oops, I've just broken my wax crayon, but okay.
And if anyone's using any sort of different objects to how it would be great to know what you're using and how it's working. Also, there's an opportunity to send your artworks into our Dropbox, which we'll send you a link afterwards, so you can share them in our gallery.
Yeah, so hopefully you're using whatever objects you have. I think one thing to think about is the composition. So I'm just like how you might arrange the different rubbings together. So we've got three things now. This bit of bark, this metalwork, the shoe, and I'm just sort of putting them in kind of combination with each other. So I'm just going to keep going with these different objects that I've got. Do the same. Even if you've got the same, you might only have one object, but what you can do is repeat that. So if if I wanted to do this again, you could just put it into a different area of the sheet of paper and make a different arrangement. So I'm going to try this water bottle. And I've got a grey.
Someone's just said that bubble wrap really works very well, Harold.
Okay. I think I've got some bubble wrap actually. I might try that. I've got these lines that are coming through from the water bottle. I have got some bubble wrap actually. Someone said it just happens to be here. So that was not planned. So maybe I'll just try that, seeing as we've had a recommendation. I don't know if it needs to be on the bubble side. Is that, maybe someone can give me a tip, but okay.
We've also got someone using part of a brick wall, coins, a rubber doormat, and a trivet. I don't know what a trivet is. Do you know?
I think, is a trivet a bit like the metal thing that Harold's using there?
Okay.
Something for keeping stuff dry. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Harold, do you know what a trivet is?
What, sorry?
A trivet.
Trivet?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'd like to know what it is though. Trivet. Trivet.
We send in pictures of the
Yeah.
trivet.
Be good to know. I'm not getting much joy with my bubble wrap, so I'm hoping other people are. Maybe it's something that I'm not doing. Maybe I'm not pressing hard enough, but anyway.
And we've got someone using buttons as well.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, it's trial and error. I mean, I think that's what I quite like about this. There's some things you'll get will work and will be like you'll get like a really interesting result. I'm gonna randomly, I've got this like hard drive that's just for a computer, but it's got this quite interesting sort of pattern on here. Gonna give that a go.
I've now got a definition for a trivet. It is, I think you have one, Harold. It's a metal coaster for putting hot pans on.
Oh, right, okay, so this is it then.
Yes.
Well, that's a trivet.
Yes, I think so.
Brilliant.
Thank you for all the definitions that come in. It's very helpful.
I never knew that. Trivet, okay. I've got a whole set of them actually that I didn't ever know what they were called, but okay. So that's given a bit of an impression of this sort of weird sort of pattern from there. So yeah, I mean, I think that as an initial gives you an idea of the possibilities of what you can do with the different colours. You might only want to do one colour or two colours. So again, the kind of combination of your composition where you arrange things and the colours kind of is going to make your image. And you can do like a repeat pattern. You could have one rubbing, then another rubbing, then another, you know, so you could arrange it in a particular way. So feel free to kind of give that a go if you want to do that. It may be that you will just want to do a sampler, a bit like this, where you've got all your bits together and you just try different ones, and then maybe you begin to make a kind of composition around. So I don't know if, should I give people time to have a little go with that, or?
Maybe, yeah, and if you draw along with people, we can then share with you what other people are using, because we've had a few more comments come in. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna try, now that I know what this is, the trivet, I'm gonna like try and maybe work a composition with it. So maybe I'll have it in the middle and then I'll have some different textures around it or something. I don't know, that's what I'm gonna do, based on having just sampled a few of them. So maybe I'll have it in red.
I had a message from Hannah at the deaf unit, and they do need some time to look away from the screen. So
Sure.
if you're just carrying on with the same objects, we can all do it along together, I think, if that's all right.
Yeah, great.
And we've had news of people using a metal fence piece, a Halloween stencil. Someone's using their crutches, a summer hat, and a radiator with a glass.
Oh.
And the underside of a bobbly slipper works well. So that's another shoe that works.
Okay. That sounds really great. It's like
we've had a question come in, Harold, which is, would oil pastels work just as well as crayons, or does it need to be crayons?
I think wax crayons are probably better. I mean, the thing about oil pastels is that they tend to smudge a bit. I mean, it's worth trying. Again, it's an experiment. There's, you know, in art, there are no hard and fast rules, and mistakes often cause really interesting discoveries. But yeah, wax crayons tend to be a bit softer. So you might get a bit more smudging, but if you like that, I would go with that. A kind of wax crayon is a bit firmer, so you get a more defined sort of rubbing. But yeah, if they've got wax crayons, definitely give it a go. Let us know.
Yes, do let us know.
So I'm going to use my piece again.
So just while you're carrying on, Harold, we've had a few more objects coming in. There's some shell tiles.
Oh, okay.
And a shell, tiles from the Mediterranean, and a woven placemat.
Okay.
You can hear how the woven placemat works and whether it's
Yeah.
the softness comes through. Jigsaw pieces, spatulas, cupcake cases, a cheese grater, and a colander.
Whoa. Okay. There's some like ingenious like round objects and like.
And a cone as well.
I imagine people are maneuvering their paper to get into like. Yeah, that's great.
I like the way it's almost quite sculptural in the way that you do the relief.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's yeah, it's a sense of kind of sort of like depth and just bringing the different textures together. I mean, I'm doing a bit of overlapping with things. Maybe I use 2 colours as well.
So we had someone else using squashed plastic packaging. Be good to hear how that works.
Ooh, okay.
And we've had a message saying, really inspired, so thank you.
Okay. So I've gone with this sort of slightly decorative thing with the trivet in the middle, and then these just textures kind of around. I think what's really nice about this is also you can like tell stories as well. You could tell the story of some objects that you have. You know, you could tell a story of a particular kind of place, map the environment if, you know, you're just collecting like samples of different surfaces. Yeah, so hopefully people are still going. Do we need more time? I'm happy to kind of carry on.
Maybe we can have a couple of minutes and then move on to the next one is the paint, isn't it? White.
Yes.
So maybe a couple of minutes for
Sure.
to finish with the last composition.
That's good. Okay, I'm just going to carry on.
We're just going to carry on doing some in the same way, or?
Yeah, I think so. Just going to try different compositions, I think. Different colours. Maybe. I'll do a few of this.
The next set of interesting objects are a woven basket, a tennis racket ball, and corrugated card. Very textural.
Okay, oh great. Yeah. Tennis racket's really good. Right.
And someone from one of the forensic units have said that they've used a light switch, which has worked really well. So moving to the architectural elements of the building.
Right. Like, was it on or off? As it doesn't matter. Mixing some colours together. Try this bit of bark as well.
Someone's just said that they've wrapped their paper around a textural vase in different directions, so it is becoming very sculptural.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, you can really use the paper and shape it. Corner of this.
It's kind of almost nice to see the paper and not know what the objects or technique has been and see it as this kind of...
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, you can kind of lose a sense of the origin of it. It becomes quite sort of like abstracted, I guess, in terms of knowing what the, just from looking at your composition, what the original thing was. So it's sort of transformed, which is quite fun. Great. What should I do? Quite like this because it's like fish scales. How about this one? Okay. Hopefully everyone's getting some interesting results. I'm dying to see what everyone else is doing. So I hope people, I know there's a gallery, so hopefully later it'd be really great to see what results people have got from their experiments. I wish I'd bought some more 3D objects, actually. It sounds like everyone's getting some, like the kind of colanders and vases and stuff. Like, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, the Dropbox link for the gallery will email out to all attendees, but it's also just available on our website under the Digital Arts School Gallery tab. You can just click onto the Dropbox link there and see all the work that people have uploaded already.
I'm looking forward to that, seeing that. Okay, I might just move on.
I think we can move on, yeah.
If everyone is kind of sort of good. Just to the next section. So I mentioned at the beginning that it'd be good if you have a white crayon. So hopefully you have a white crayon. So if you can just get your white crayon. Okay, so we're going to be doing some rubbings, but this time with the white crayon. So when you take your rubbing, actually, you'll probably see that you can't see it because it's all, or you'll see a little bit of the surface. And what this technique is called wax resist. So, and I'll explain a little bit as we're kind of sort of going, and we'll use the paint to reveal the rubbing. So it's kind of like the opposite of what you've been doing. If using the kind of the colour crayons was like the positive, this is like the sort of negative version. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a go. I might start with just my favourite bit of tech equipment. So again, just take your crayon, just rub across the surface. What's quite nice about this is that sometimes it's a bit of a surprise because you can't necessarily see what you've actually got to begin with. Hue, again, I'll get this one. Okay. Just got a bit of that shoe pattern, and then maybe the trivet. And maybe I'll just do like only a section of this. And maybe just one more thing, which is...
We've had a question in which maybe you can answer as you're working, Harold.
Yeah.
How did Harold get these images on a larger scale onto the wall at Croydon?
Oh, yeah. Oh, just broken my friend. Well, from the rubbings, we took photographs, and then we put those photographs onto a computer, and then attached that to a projector, and then sort of projected it against the wall. So it blew up the kind of photograph we'd taken of the rubbing. And then we used the projection that was on the wall to do the painting. So we kind of sort of traced it from the painting. So that just allowed us to kind of scale it up and then to kind of sort of follow the pattern and design from the projection. So yeah, that's how we did it.
It was very fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's quick. There's quite a few of us. Phoebe was there. So I've just done a few rubbings, as you can see or not see. Not necessarily very visible, but what we're going to do is I'm going to bring in paint. So yeah, hopefully you've got your paint. So I've only got 2 colours, but yeah, you can obviously have as many colours as you want and whichever colours you want to use. So I'm just going to kind of need it quite thin, so you don't need thick paint, so make sure you've got enough water to thin your paint down. So basically what we're going to then do is using your brush is just go over the area where you've just put the wax, and what you'll see is that the paint won't go on where the wax is. So this is called wax resist. So the wax stops the paint soaking into the paper, but it goes into the holes, so it kind of just reveals the pattern or the rubbing that you've done. It's sometimes more easier to see as it dries. You'll see that it becomes a bit more kind of defined. And again, it's up to you to decide which colours and where you put the paint. You can mix them. I might switch to blue in a bit. It's quite pinky. It's probably going to be a bit purple actually, because I'm mixing the two. And if it's too thick, just add a bit more water again. Mix them there. Yeah, so as you can see, this trivet thing is kind of sort of emerging. And so it's quite nice, it's quite fun, you know, if you were kind of going around just like getting loads of sort of sample rubbings and layering them, it's not until you get to the stage where you're adding the paint that you necessarily see what kind of emerges. So if you're a fan of surprises, it can be good. Okay, so that's basically that technique really, which is just using the white crayon, and you'll get yeah, where the wax stands out, it's sort of kind of more sort of prominent. So I'm going to give people a chance to try this. Maybe I'll do another one, and then there's one more task that I'm going to sort of like introduce to everyone. But yeah, so definitely give this a go if you've got the white crayon. I'm going to put this to one side on the floor. I'm going to get some other things to do another.
We'll go on for a bit longer this session, probably another 7 to 10 minutes. Is that okay, Harold?
Yeah.
If anyone does have to leave early, we are recording this session, which will be online later, as well as the short tutorial 10-minute version. But otherwise, we'll all keep doing our wax rubbings.
I've actually got, I'm going to get up and just grab something else. I've got this little speaker. I might try that. It's got a bit of a texture there. See how that works. just gonna use paint, see how this works out. Okay. That was my little speaker. Okay, so that's a couple more things. Well, sort of come out. Some better than others, but again, a bit experimental. How's everyone getting on? Are there any?
Well, nothing in the Q&A recently, but yeah, it'd be good to hear any updates on how it's worked with the white wax crayon on the paint for you guys attending.
And what's the last exercise, Harold?
Well, I thought in some ways, what I thought was quite good actually is that you could kind of combine some of the techniques. So, so for example, actually maybe I'll just start with this. We've got this paint, and if you've got white paper, you actually just might want to just do a wash as a sort of background. So I'm just sort of just covering the paper in a really sort of light, thin wash.
And you haven't done any rubbing on the paper already?
No, I haven't done any rubbing on here. Okay. And again, you know, you could do any kind of combinations of colours. And if you leave that to dry, then you can then use it to do some, I won't do it because it's still wet, but you could then use it as your paper to do coloured rubbing. So, you know, you'd then do a rubbing over that, and then you'd have the background of this painted colour. So that's one thing that you could sort of do. I'll leave that to dry. And then equally with your, where you've used the wax, the white wax and paint, you can then introduce colour. So, you know, if you had like a blue or an orange, perhaps. I don't know if this is quite dry enough, but I'll risk it. Maybe in this little area here. Like, oh, this is, what's this? Green, yellow. You could then add a colour to the existing kind of combination on top of the sort of with the painted background and with your white. So you can kind of mix up the sort of techniques and kind of sort of layer them a little bit and get some combinations. So you might do like a coloured rubbing over like where you've got this white wax as well. So just encourage people to kind of experiment a little bit and sort of try combinations of these and see what works.
We've had quite a few mixed responses from the white wax rubbing.
Okay.
So someone said that they really like the surprise of the white wax rubbing. Mm-hmm. Someone said they didn't have much luck with the white crayon and the paint. The rubbings weren't showing very well.
Okay.
And then someone said, I don't think they had white, but they had to use pink, and it still looked really great.
Oh, great.
Around it did nice things with the wax. And then someone suggested you could do a rubbing on a church floor if they let you, which would be amazing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, like I said, I think sort of 200, 300 years ago, that was, there was a sort of tradition of people taking rubbings, particularly visiting churches and old buildings, as a way of kind of getting a souvenir. Obviously get permission. But yeah, but you know, I mean, I think you can find lots of really interesting surfaces, and it's a great way to think about like a place or an environment through its textures. So you might have to just rub your hands on it to get a sense of, you know, and then often it's quite a surprise when you do the rubbing in relation to you having a kind of sort of feel of it. I mean, my favorites are always manhole covers. And there are some really, really amazing manhole covers on streets, in cities, on pavements generally. They often have really amazing designs. Some of them go back into the kind of Victorian era, like over 100 years old. Some have dates or logos, or I always like to look out for manhole covers. But yeah, but bricks, I think somebody said they did bricks. Bricks are often really interesting, like there are regional variations in bricks. So like the London brick is quite a famous sort of brick. I'm actually in Cambridge, and Cambridge has its own very particular coloured shape, size of brick. So wherever you are, you'd be surprised. There might be a kind of, even bricks can be very specific.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the workshop, Harold, and it was so nice to see all those different techniques, and everyone seems to have got really stuck in, which is what we want, which is great. And again, I know we've said it before, but please do take pictures of your work, drop them into the Dropbox. We'll share them with Harold as well. And lots of people are coming in now saying, thank you, Harold, thank you, Harold. It was a great session, loved it. So yes, thank you, Harold.
No, thanks to everyone, and I really look forward to seeing people's results in the gallery, and I'm going to be grabbing some inspiration from some of the stuff you've done too. Thanks.
Great. Just before we go, just to say again that Harold's video and all the other video tutorials are up on the YouTube channel. Please do check them out. They are brilliant resources. And there's a feedback form again. Please do fill it out if you're from a unit. That would be so helpful for us. And sorry, we're getting so many messages saying brilliant session, love the involvement, the possibilities are great. Thank you. Very inspiring and enjoyable. Thank you very much for sharing the methods of work. That was from a service user in a forensic unit. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Harold. And thank you everyone for joining. We shall see you next week at 2 p.m. on Thursday, which will be Eileen Cooper, and the workshop is a big cat drawing workshop. So be prepared. Okay, bye everyone.
Thanks, Harold.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you.